Every game starts the same way. 3 lanes, 5 players, 1 goal.
Is the best team in the world, and SKT are once again the champions!
But only one lane truly decides how the story unfolds. The middle. The shortest path between bases, yet the longest road to mastery. Mid lane has always been more than a position. It's a mirror of League itself. When the game was young, mid was simple, a quiet duel of spells and mana. As League evolved, so did its heart. Mages turned into assassins, assassins into tacticians, tacticians into roamers, and roamers into monsters of scaling and tempo. Every era changed the way players thought, moved, and fought. From the earliest patch notes to the grandest world stage, mid lane has defined the pace of the game and the legends who shaped it. This is the story of that evolution, a journey from the quiet days of raw magic to the lightning-fast chaos of modern League. A story of patches and players, of balance and brilliance, of power shifting from hands to ideas. This is From Mages to Monsters, the complete history of mid lane.
When League of Legends was born, it wasn't about ranked ladders or world's trophies. It was raw chaos, uneven maps, buggy champions, and a dream that somehow worked. At the center of that dream stood mid lane, a single road where 2 players faced each other like duelists, throwing fire and lightning across the rift. This was the age of magic, a time when Annie, Veigar, Ryze, and Morgana ruled the game. They weren't fast, but they were powerful, wizards in a world that still believed mana was the key to victory. Whoever got blue buff first became a god, and whoever didn't prayed for mercy. Mid lane wasn't just about skill, it was about endurance. Managing mana, dodging skill shots, and landing that perfect Tibbers or Dark Binding was enough to win respect. There was no such thing as macro. Junglers were lost in the woods, quite literally. Warwick, Fiddlesticks, and Amumu wandered the map with no plan, so mid lane was left alone to decide its own fate.
Flash had a 5-minute cooldown.
Ignite burned longer than a team fight, and players still ran Clarity, believing mana regen could solve everything.
Nice.
But then, things started to move. Champions like Kassadin, Gragas, and LeBlanc broke the rules. They dashed, blinked, and disappeared before you could react. The rift began to evolve, and so did the players. The once slow lane of mages started to feel smaller, faster, more dangerous. Season 2 came, and with it, Ahri. The 9-tailed fox changed everything. She brought charm, mobility, and flair to a lane that had been static for years. Suddenly, movement was power, and from that moment, League was never the same again. Names like Reginald, Toys, and Xpeke became whispers of greatness. Their plays weren't perfect, but they were creative, daring, the first sparks of what mid lane could become.
Deal with this one. Catches him with another axe. He's very low. They're pushing on the next.
By the time the first World Championship ended, the world had seen the truth. Mid lane was the heart of League. The spells had started to fade, replaced by blades, shadows, and motion. The mages ruled the beginning, but assassins were already sharpening their knives.
Season 3 changed everything. The calm, methodical pace of mages vanished, replaced by speed, aggression, and death. The assassin era was born. Zed, Talon, Katarina, Fizz, and Akali ruled the mid lane with one mission: kill or be killed. It wasn't about farming anymore. It was about dominance. Fights ended in seconds, sometimes less, and every misstep meant your screen turned gray. The item Deathfire Grasp defined the meta. One button to erase anyone who dared stand too close. Flash, combo,
Ignite, delete. It was brutal and beautiful. The rise of mobility and burst changed how League felt to play. Mid lane was no longer chess. It was a highlight reel. The first generation of montage culture exploded. YouTube filled with clips of Zed outplays and Katarina pentakills. Players like Faker, Dade, and XPK brought this chaos to the world stage. Faker Zed versus Ryu, the duel that still defines perfection, wasn't just a mechanical outplay, it was a statement.
Trouble here, Deathmark tries to clean it up for Ryu. Oh, look at the cleanse, look at the moves! Faker, what was that?
Mid lane was art through violence. For the first time, the world saw that the best player in the world was also the mid laner. But Riot saw something else: chaos. The Black Cleaver rework, Red Elixir abuse, and early game snowballs made matches too fast. Games ended before Baron could even spawn. Skills shined, yes, but balance cracked. So Riot stepped in, removing Deathfire Grasp, trimming damage, and restoring structure. The assassins had burned too brightly, too fast. Their era had defined what skill expression meant, but it couldn't last. When the fires dimmed, the rift grew quiet again, slower, more deliberate. Mid lane was about to evolve from instinct to intellect. The blood had dried, and from it rose something colder: control.
When the smoke from the Assassin Wars finally cleared, the rift slowed down. Riot had rebalanced the game, lowered early damage, and rewarded patience over chaos. Mid lane transformed from a brawl into a battlefield of precision. This was the control era, a time where victory was earned not through speed, but through mastery. The faces of this era were the control mages: Orianna, VIKTOR, AZIR, Lulu, Anivia, and Syndra. They didn't kill instantly. They suffocated opponents slowly, wave by wave. Wave clear became the ultimate weapon. Whoever controlled the wave controlled the map, and whoever rotated first dictated every fight. Teleport replaced Ignite as the spell of choice. Mid laners became generals rather than duelists, orchestrating rotations from base to bot lane, setting up dragon fights before enemies even realized what was happening. Macro had arrived, and the best mid laners became the architects of their teams. This was when names like Faker, Bjergsen, Pawn, and Rookie dominated the world. They didn't chase kills, they chased control. Every ward placement, every lane freeze, every slow push was a chess move. Teams built their identity around their mid laner, and for the first time, the role became the brain of League. But not everyone loved it. To some, the chaos was gone. The art of mechanical brilliance replaced by patience and discipline. Pro games turned into 40-minute marathons where one mistake at Baron decided everything. League was smarter, but colder. The rift had become calculated, and players started craving freedom again. Still, control had defined what mastery meant. The best didn't just react, they predicted. They saw 3 steps ahead. But in a world that had finally learned to think, players were about to remember how to move. The rift was about to open up, and mid laners would once again learn to roam. After years of structure and control, the rift started moving again. The patience of macro was breaking apart, and players were ready to take risks. Season 7 opened a new era, the age of roamers, where the best mid laners weren't the ones who stayed mid, but the ones who didn't. Champions like Taliyah, Aurelion Sol, and Galio redefined how mid lane worked. You didn't just win your lane, you won the map.
clear the wave, disappear, and make something happen elsewhere. Roaming wasn't a side strategy, it was the meta. Pro teams revolved around mid-lane map control, and whoever moved first won fights before they even began. Faker showed it with his Galio, Perk's mastered Talia, and teams like SKT, Samsung, and G2 built worlds-level strategies on the idea of pressure through motion. League was faster than ever. Every wave was a decision, stay or roam, and every second you hesitated, the map changed without you. Then, Runes Were Forged arrived and tore the rules apart. Electrocute, Fleet Footwork, and Conqueror gave players new ways to express skill. Bruisers like Irelia and Yasuo stepped into mid-lane, fighting shoulder to shoulder with assassins and mages. Mid-lane wasn't about class anymore, it was about impact. The rift had opened up completely. Mid-lane became the central highway of the game, a place where every champion could exist and every playstyle could thrive. It was chaotic, creative, and endlessly exciting, a reminder that League was still capable of reinventing itself. But buried beneath the freedom was something dangerous. Players were experimenting too fast, metas shifting too wildly, and as the game approached its 10th year, Riot looked for stability again, something predictable, something balanced. The next era wouldn't be defined by speed, but by time itself. The age of roaming would give way to the age of scaling. As the dust of constant roaming settled, the rift slowed down again. Riot began tuning the game toward balance, pulling back on snowballing, rewarding teams that played for the long game. The result was the age of scaling, a time when patience returned and control majors once more ruled the stage. Champions like VIKTOR, AZIR, and Orianna became the architects of this new order. They didn't explode fights, they shaped them. Each wave was a step in a greater plan, each ability a piece of terrain to command space. Scaling wasn't just about items, it was about trust. Trust that if you played safe, farmed right, and reached your items, you'd win the war that came after 20 minutes. Pro play mirrored that rhythm. Teams like DWG, FPX, and G2 built drafts around scaling mages, enabling controlled late-game dominance. The 2019 World Championship became a masterclass in this philosophy. Doinby's unconventional roamers on one side, Faker's AZIR on the other, a duel between tempo and inevitability. Solo queue told a different story. Players still picked Zed, Yasuo, and Sylas, hunting highlights instead of control. But on the professional stage, victory belonged to the ones who understood patience. Mid lane had matured. The chaos of assassins and roamers was gone, replaced by measured brilliance. This was the calm before the storm, because Riot wasn't done evolving the game. New systems were coming, ones that would shatter balance all over again. Soon, every item would carry power far beyond its stats, and mid laners would once again be forced to adapt or disappear. The MYTHIC era was on its way. Season 11 arrived with a system that promised creativity but delivered chaos. The MYTHIC item rework. Every champion suddenly had a defining core item, a single purchase that changed their identity. Luden's Kempest, Liandry's Anguish, Crown of the Shattered Queen, Everfrost. Each one warped how mid laners played the game. For a while, it was glorious. Mages rediscovered power. Ahri, VIKTOR, Syndra, and Orianna could finally adapt builds to match the fight. Assassins like Zed and Katarina found new life through lethality items, and bruisers like Sylas and Irelia thrived on sustain. Every game felt like a test of which MYTHIC could outscale the rest. But the cracks showed fast. The game became item-dependent, not skill-dependent. If you built wrong, you lost. If your mythic countered theirs, you won. The individuality of champions faded into the identity of their items. Riot had given players freedom, and with it, imbalance. Mobility creep made it worse. Every new champion could dash, blink, or glide. Akshan, Kiana, and LeBlanc danced around static mages who couldn't keep up. Fights became blurs of motion. Positioning meant nothing when everyone had 10 ways to escape. The Rift looked more like an action movie than a strategy game. Still, some players thrived in the chaos. Showmakers Twisted Fate, Chovy's Silas, and Knight's LeBlanc defined what mastery looked like in the new world. They learned to navigate the noise, to make the game bend around them. But even the best knew it couldn't last. The game had lost its balance, its identity buried under systems. The icons outshone the champions themselves. Riot needed to take control again, to return League to what it once was, a game of choices, not restrictions. And so, the call for change grew louder. The next era would strip everything away, the mythics, the clutter, the noise, and return League to its roots. After 2 seasons of chaos, Riot did something no one expected. They hit the reset button. The MYTHIC system that had defined modern League vanished overnight, and with it, the clutter that drowned the game. The Rift felt lighter, cleaner, almost nostalgic. For the first time in years, players built items based on creativity, not obligation. League had come full circle. Without mythics dictating every build, mages found freedom again. Anivia, Cassiopeia, Oriana, and Syndra rose from the ashes of forced itemization. Each match felt unique, not because of systems, but because of players. Ahri could rush utility or burst. VIKTOR could scale or spike early. Silas could choose chaos or control. It was messy, but it was alive. The gameplay slowed, and people realized how much they had missed simplicity. Wave management, positioning, and timing mattered again. Players talked about game sense instead of patch notes. The mid lane, once buried under mechanics, rediscovered its soul. Pro play echoed that shift. Faker, after more than a decade, lifted another World's trophy, proving that adaptation isn't about chasing change, it's about outlasting it. He wasn't the flashiest mid laner anymore, but the smartest, a living symbol of League's evolution. As the community celebrated the return to roots, something new began brewing beneath the surface. The pace of the game was steady, but players were pushing limits again, experimenting with tempo, rotation, and early pressure. League was no longer about one-trick metas. It was about flow, timing, and rhythm. The next step wouldn't be about mechanics or power spikes. It would be about understanding tempo, and whoever mastered it would shape the modern era of mid lane. Season 15, League had matured into something both familiar and unrecognizable. The chaos of Mythics was gone, yet the energy of the new Rift was electric. The word that defined it all, tempo. Mid lane was no longer about raw damage or even scaling. It was about rhythm. Who moved first? Who reacted second? Who controlled the pace of the game? Every minion wave became a heartbeat. Every second, a chance to shift control. Champions like Syndra, Talia, Silas, and Tristana represented that flexibility, each one capable of pushing, roaming, or fighting, depending on the rhythm of the match. The best mid laners weren't just fast or smart, they were synchronized with the flow of the game. In pro play, names like Chovy, Knight, and Caps mastered the art of tempo.
They didn't need highlight reels to dominate. A well-timed roam, a single wave crash before dragon, or one perfect reset could decide the game. The mid lane had become a conductor's podium, not the loudest role, but the one that dictated everything else. For the first time in years, balance felt close. Riot had stripped away the clutter, and mid lane reflected that purity. Power didn't come from items or gimmicks. It came from decision-making. The game wasn't about who could kill faster, it was about who could think faster. And yet, League never stays still. Each patch brings new champions, new reworks, new mechanics waiting to break what came before. The Rift is a living thing, evolving, learning, testing. And mid lane, as always, beats at its center, like a pulse. The story isn't ending. It's simply changing tempo again.
15 years. That's how long mid lane has carried the pulse of League of Legends, through every rework, every patch, every season of chaos and brilliance. What started as a lane of spells and mana bars became a stage for mastery, where the smallest decision could echo through the entire game. From Annie's fireballs to Zed's shadows, from Orianna's precision to Sylas's chaos, mid lane has reflected every era of League's identity. It has been patient, reckless, methodical, and wild, but always central. Every champion, every meta, every highlight reel has flowed through the middle of the map like a heartbeat. The players who ruled it became legends. Faker, the eternal emperor of the Rift. Doimb, the mad scientist who turned rooms into art. Chovy and Knight, mechanical perfection made human. Each one carried a piece of mid lane's history in their hands, a story written in minion waves, skill shots, and risk. Mid lane isn't just the role. It's the spine of League, the place where evolution never stops. When Riot changes the game, mid feels it first. When a new meta rises, mid defines it. Every year brings new systems, new items, new ideas, but the essence remains untouched. Control the center, and you control the game. Now, in Season 15 and beyond, mid lane stands at its most flexible form ever. Any champion can stand there, mage, assassin, bruiser, even ADC, and still make sense. The boundaries are gone, but the weight remains. Because no matter how much the Rift changes, mid will always be where legends are born.
So when the minions meet in the middle and the first spell is cast, remember, you're standing on history. Every auto, every trade, every roam carries the echoes of those who came before. The pioneers, the innovators, the monsters who shaped this lane into what it is today. Mid lane doesn't follow the meta. Mid lane is the meta.